They suck.
Wow.
The Raiders suck. The coaches suck. The players suck. Everybody in that they suck. And I'm pissed off.
Al Davis is rolling over in his grave. That's what he is doing.
Well, look, I'm glad that Devontae finally just said it. Get me out of here.
There was once a time when the Raiders were feared across the league. Since their last Super Bowl win in 1983, the Raiders have been stuck in a cycle of bad hires and bad decisions. And while other organizations built dynasties through smart, consistent leadership, the Raiders have fallen into chaos. When Al Davis, the original owner of the Oakland Raiders, passed away in 2011, his son Mark Davis took over control of the team. Shortly after, Mark hired Reggie McKenzie, the franchise's first real GM in decades. He drafted Derek Carr and Khalil Mack and even put together a playoff team. But 7 seasons and 4 head coaches later, Reggie McKenzie was fired. Then in 2018, the Raiders hired Mike Mayock as the new GM, and he brought back head coach Jon Gruden. But that didn't last very long either.
One of the NFL's most well-known head coaches, Jon Gruden of the Las Vegas Raiders, is out of a job after a series of highly offensive emails were publicly disclosed by the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal.
In 2021, Gruden was forced to resign after leaked emails showed him using racist, sexist, and homophobic language. These emails didn't just end his career, they exposed who he really was when he thought nobody was watching. That same season, tragedy hit when Henry Ruggs, a former first-round pick, was involved in a fatal DUI crash.
The Las Vegas Raiders cut wide receiver Henry Ruggs III. The move came after Ruggs was released from a hospital to a Las Vegas jail on 2 felony charges after a fiery vehicle crash early on Tuesday that left a woman and her dog dead.
And then 1 week later, Damon Arnett, another former first-round pick, was also cut from the team after he threatened someone with a gun on social media. Despite finishing 10-7 and making the playoffs, it was clear that the Raiders' foundation was broken. Mike Mayock was fired in early 2022. The Raiders then hired Dave Ziegler as the GM and Josh McDaniels as head coach, but their time was also short-lived as they were both fired less than 2 years later. By the end of the 2023 season, the Raiders weren't just losing games, they were completely broken. Lost, leaderless, and living in the past. What was once a proud franchise had become a cautionary tale. And then, in 2024, the Raiders brought in a man who they believed could change everything about this franchise. In October of 2024, the greatest player of all time, Tom Brady, officially became a minority owner of the Las Vegas Raiders, partnering with billionaire investor Tom Wagner to secure a 10% stake in the franchise. From the moment NFL owners unanimously approved the deal, Brady began reshaping the franchise in his own image. Brady dove headfirst into the Raiders' rebuild, taking an active role in critical decisions at the top. He was instrumental in the hiring of head coach Pete Carroll and general manager John Spytek, who Brady knew from their championship days in Tampa Bay. But Brady's influence went beyond his hiring decisions. He brought with him a culture of accountability and discipline. With Brady now on board, a new era can begin. But even Brady knows that championships aren't won in the boardroom. Culture starts on the field, and that's why Brady pushed to bring Pete Carroll on as the new head coach. While Brady rebuilds the Raiders behind the scenes, Carroll will lead the charge on the field. Rebuilds are nothing new for Pete Carroll, but this one might be his toughest yet. The last time Carroll took over a struggling franchise, it was back in 2010 with the Seattle Seahawks, and within 4 years, they had won a Super Bowl. Now he's in Las Vegas and the Raiders are betting on deja vu. Carroll is known for a lot of things: his energy, his defensive mindset, and his championship pedigree. But one thing that's often overlooked is his ability to find mid to late round talent in the NFL draft, consistently discovering talent year after year. Cam Chancellor, Richard Sherman, KJ Wright, Bobby Wagner, these picks were the start of the Legion of Boom and helped form the backbone for one of the most dominant defenses in modern football history. Pete Carroll will now have the challenge of taking over a Raiders organization that is known for being one of the most intimidating franchises in all of football. Luckily, he didn't come alone. 6 weeks after accepting the head coaching job in Las Vegas, Pete Carroll recruited Geno Smith to join the team, both an obvious yet interesting choice. For almost 10 years, Geno Smith had been written off. a quarterback bouncing from locker room to locker room, barely seeing the field. But in Seattle, everything changed. Under Pete Carroll, Geno Smith redefined his career. In 2022, he led the league in completion percentage and threw for over 4,200 yards and 30 passing touchdowns, earning Comeback Player of the Year. He followed that with 2 more strong seasons, throwing for over 4,000 yards again in 2024, proving that it wasn't just a fluke. Now he reunites with the coach who believed in him when no one else would. And while the Raiders will need to focus on finding a solid wide receiver for Geno Smith this season, they do already have a superstar on offense that can help out. That weapon is Brock Bowers. Bowers didn't just impress during his rookie season, he rewrote the record books. In 2024, he surpassed Mike Ditka for the most receiving yards by a rookie tight end. He passed Puka Nacua for the most receptions by any rookie at any position, and he did all of this despite dealing with a revolving door at quarterback and an outgoing coaching staff. All in his rookie year as a tight end. Now, Bowers is paired with Geno Smith, a quarterback who completed 70% of his passes last season and a quarterback who already has Carroll's full trust. This move will give Brock Bowers a chance to elevate his game even further in year 2. On top of adding Geno Smith, Pete Carroll and the Raiders also signed veteran running back Raheem Mostert, who broke out in 2023 for Miami, rushing for over 1,000 yards and 18 rushing touchdowns. His total of 21 all-purpose touchdowns that season set a new record for the Miami Dolphins. Defensively, the Raiders made a huge offseason move by re-signing the heart and soul of this unit, Max Crosby. Drafted in the 4th round, he put up 10 sacks as a rookie, becoming the second rookie in Raiders franchise history to hit double digits. And over the past 3 seasons, Max Crosby leads the NFL in defensive snaps played by a lineman. No drama, no decline, just production. He's the anchor of this defense, and at just 27 years old, he's entering his prime. But the Raiders didn't stop there. They made sure to bring in some more help. First came safety Jeremy Chinn. Jeremy Chinn to this day is the only player in the Super Bowl era to have scored 2 fumble recovery touchdowns in a single game. And last year with the Washington Commanders, he continued his relentless pace, posting 107 tackles, 2 sacks, and an interception in 2024. Next, the Raiders looked to solidify their linebacker room with the addition of Landon Roberts. A respected voice in the locker room, Roberts served as a captain for both the New England Patriots and the Miami Dolphins. And throughout his 9-year NFL career, he's piled up over 600 tackles and counting. Piece by piece from the top down, the Raiders are starting to build a team with teeth. And now comes the first real test of this new hierarchy, the NFL Draft. 9 picks, a top 10 selection, and a chance to change everything. Yes, the Raiders enter the 2025 NFL Draft with a total of 9 picks, including 2 compensatory selections in the 6th round. That's 2 extra picks and a real opportunity to reset the roster. After trading away Davante Adams, this offense lacks a true wide receiver 1. Meanwhile, there are 4 players who the Raiders might really be targeting in this year's draft. And while the early rounds of the draft are important, history says don't sleep on those later round picks. Remember, Tom Brady himself was drafted in the 6th round of the 2000 NFL Draft. It's a reminder that championship pieces can come from anywhere, and this year, the Raiders can't afford to miss. Let's be clear, the Raiders aren't back yet. They haven't hoisted a trophy, and they haven't won the division. But for the first time in years, there's a real plan at every level, and in the NFL, that's the first step to winning. This isn't just about the 2025 season. This is about what comes next for the Silver and Black. The Raiders may still be a few seasons away from contending for a Super Bowl, but for the first time in a long time, the Raiders now have hope. The rise of the Raiders has begun.